everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to Books for Tea. Long time no see, but today I thought that I would try to wrap up all of the books that I've read in 2018 and haven't talked about yet. So to kind of make an end of the year wrap up that covers all of the books that I haven't discussed yet, so that we can start into the new year without me feeling like, oh, there's still some books I haven't discussed yet, so I should talk about them. However, maybe you know that I have not talked about any books on my channel that I've read since September. So I have September, October, November and December to cover, and over those 4 months I actually read 30 books. I will go through them starting with the books I like the least and working my way up to the top. I've actually read 6 2 or 2.5 star books, 4 3 or 3.5 star books, 14 4 or 4.5 star books, and 5 5-star books. The book that I like the least, the one that I rated just 2 stars, is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I already knew the general story. I know about Scrooge who gets visited by the 3 ghosts of Christmas because he's been such a bad person in his daily life, and the ghosts are there to kind of try to convince him to change his ways. But I wanted to read the story for myself because it was Christmas and I wanted to just, I don't know, have this Christmassy read. Also the cover of the edition that I have is stunning, so that was one of the reasons I even got it in the first place, because normally I don't really like classic, and I also didn't like this. I don't know, I stopped after reading about half of it because I just wasn't interested in it. It felt boring. So in the beginning of the book, someone, I'm not quite sure who it was, wrote an introduction saying when they were younger they tried reading Dickens and didn't like it at all, but that A Christmas Carol is a good introduction to Dickens. But I think maybe I just need to get a little bit older as well, and maybe one day I will enjoy Dickens. But last year wasn't that for me, so I DNF'd it and gave it 2 stars and will maybe in a couple of years come back to it. Now we will move on to my 2.5 star reads, and there are quite a few. The first one is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and I didn't like it. I thought that the author was, I don't know, he was kind of just an asshole, and he's trying to give like self-help advice about not giving a fuck in order to be happy, but at the same time it's also like you should care about a lot of things, you should give a fuck about certain things, and I don't know, I think some things maybe were helpful, but in general the author just seemed really elitist and weird, and I couldn't relate to him at all. Like, he just was traveling all his life and he was like dating all those different women until eventually he found his wife who's now perfect for him, but before that he was just such a player and like never cared about the feelings of the women that he was with, and I don't know, he just seemed like an asshole, to be honest, and I didn't really enjoy this book. I didn't get too much out of it. I hoped that it would help me with like feeling less anxious and giving me some self-help tips about not being so in my head all of the time, but I didn't get anything out of it at all, so I gave it 2.5 stars. The next book was a really disappointing one, and that is The Power by Naomi Alderman. I had this on my 5-star prediction video for the year and I thought I would love it, but as I said, 2.5 stars, I really didn't like it. So this is about women who start having those kind of superpowers where they get to control electricity, and through this sudden power that young girls and women start to develop, they start fighting back against misogyny, against being abused and treated really horribly, and suddenly more and more women can do that, and it's about a shift in society where women become the stronger sex. But I didn't like it. The synopsis sounded so cool, but to me it was just too brutal. It was just too much. I didn't like it, and I listened to it on audiobook and eventually just didn't even really focus on it anymore, just tried to get through it somehow, and it was so disappointing because I really thought I would love it, but I just didn't, and I only gave it 2.5 stars. The next book is exactly the same as the one before. It was also on my 5-star prediction list and also ended up only getting 2.5 stars, and it was Love, Hate and Other Filters. and I'm really disappointed in this one as well. I knew that this was about a Muslim American girl who has the same name as a terrorist and all of the trouble that got her in. And I was disappointed because this plot point wasn't really the main plot of the book as I expected it to be. Most of this book was about the main character just living her life and having crushes. The main character in this is Indian American, and it deals a lot with Indian culture and her parents wanting to have the perfect Indian husband for her, while she is also falling in love with someone else. And a lot of this was just really, I don't know, it felt really young. It felt younger than the usual YA that I read. Even though the girl I think was probably like 16 or something, it felt younger than that to me. It was mainly just a love story about her falling in love with a guy and then maybe having feelings for another guy and not really knowing what to do with any of those feelings. And it even dealt with like the awful cheating, like a guy cheating on his girlfriend with the main character, but it's okay because the guy's girlfriend is awful. It had that trope that we know from like Anna and the French Kiss, and I hate that trope because yeah, cheating is never okay. I hate when it gets normalized in YA books. And what I was really disappointed by was that the whole terrorist Muslim American aspect that I was interested in really took a back seat, and I think the whole plot only started after half of the book was over, and then we got like 50 pages of this really interesting, really well done discussion of them having the same last name as someone who was accused of a terrorism attack and them getting attacked by white people because of racism and Islamophobia. Those were only like 50 pages of the book, and the rest was like weird, straight teenage drama, which I didn't expect and didn't really like. So the book really disappointed me because it didn't deliver what it promised, in my opinion, and so I gave it 2.5 stars. The next book is How to Be a Girl, which is a German book about like an introduction to feminism. And I was really excited to read this, and I thought that there was some interesting and some good aspects in it, like it deals with girl on girl hate, and that instead we should like build each other up, and that it's really awesome to be a girl, and that you shouldn't like let anyone tell you otherwise. But it was really basic, and it didn't really go in depth on any of the feminist topics. And what I thought was really poorly done was that there was a section about LGBTQIA+ issues, but they didn't really cover everything, and they gave some weird definitions, and it just wasn't as well researched and as well done as I would have hoped. And yeah, not really a fan of this. It could have been done a lot better in my opinion. It also didn't deal with like intersectional feminism and really including people of color or trans women in the feminism. It was very much the white feminism as you might know it. The next book I read was Beyond the Kingdoms by Chris Colfer, which is I think the 4th book in the Land of Stories series. This is a series about twins who travel into the world of fairy tales, also known as the Land of Stories, through an old fairy tale book because they are actually descendants of the fairy godmother, and they get to travel between the worlds. And I used to love this so much. Chris Colfer is the guy who played Kurt in Glee, and I was a huge Glee fan as a teen. And so when he started publishing his books in like 2012 or something, I was so on board with it. It was one of the first books I've ever read in English. I just realized that I have outgrown the series and that it's not nearly as good as I had it in my mind. I thought it was relatively poorly written in this installment of the series. The twins try to catch their evil uncle, who is traveling through different other books. So they go through Alice in Wonderland or Peter Pan or The Wizard of Oz lands like that, and they travel through them trying to catch their uncle. But the problem is that nothing happens in the book. They are just like building up to meeting him maybe, and it doesn't happen. Like, it's so boring. Nothing happens. And it's also really, really, really poorly written, and there were plot holes, and I was so disappointed because I used to love the series, but it's definitely something for younger readers. And yeah, I don't know, I just found that the writing style was done really poorly. I actually did a buddy read of this with my friend Hannah from Ricardo 7. I will leave her channel link down below. She really enjoyed it, and she didn't have the problems that I had with it, so don't let it discourage you if you want to read the series. I generally always recommended it, but I just didn't really like this installment at all, and I don't think I will continue with the series. I will probably unhaul my next book in a series that I already have. Now we will move on to my 3-star reads, and the first 3-star read is one that I have read really recently. I think it was my last book of the year, and that is We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchison. This is a lot of people's favorite book. It has so many good reviews on Goodreads and on BookTube. It's very well loved. But I did a buddy read with some amazing people on Twitter. We've made a little LGBT book club called LGBTVR, and we are reading a book a month, and this was our first book, and none of us really liked it. I think most people rated it even worse than I did. I gave it 3 stars because I kind of liked it. It's about this guy who gets abducted by aliens very frequently, or at least that's what he thinks. They give him the choice to save the world by pushing a button. However, he is really depressed. His boyfriend killed himself during the last year, and he just doesn't feel that this awful world is worth saving. It's a really, really cool premise, and there were some things that I really enjoyed about this book. We have an openly gay main character who also falls in love during the course of the book, but is still really hung up on this past relationship that he had where his boyfriend killed himself, and he's blaming himself. He also kind of lost his best friend. It's also about a dysfunctional family where nothing really goes right at all, and it's really, really tragic. And now that I think about it, there are a lot of things that were really good for the book, but the whole reading experience just wasn't for me. I didn't like the writing style. The whole thing with the aliens was too weird for me. It reads like a contemporary, but it has this alien thing that is an added element, and we don't know if the aliens are really real or not. It's all kind of up in the air. The aliens were weird, and I thought that the voice of the main character was also weird to me. Like, I didn't really like him. And what I also didn't like was that he falls for this guy called Diego, and Diego says that he has an ex-girlfriend. So to our main character, it's absolutely unbelievable that he could also be attracted to guys. Like, if you're in the LGBT plus community, you know that bisexuality exists, right? Like, why do we have bi erasure in so many books? I don't think he ever uses the label bisexual or pansexual or anything like that, which I think is sad because it's always good to have some explicit rap of that in there. But what I hated was that we have this guy who lives in, I think, 2016, and he's openly gay, and he doesn't, like, the concept of bisexuality just blows his mind. And why? Honestly, why can't we just accept that bisexuality exists and bi people exist? It's not that hard of a concept. But yeah, mainly because of the writing style and because the story didn't really flow as well with me, and I didn't love it as much as I hoped. I gave it 3 stars, maybe like 3.5, but yeah, just not one of my favorites. I understand why other people love it, but it wasn't really for me. The next 3-star book I read was In 80 Buchhandlungen um die Welt, and this is a German book. The title translates to Around the World in 80 Bookstores, and I tried reading this during November for non-fiction November because I have quite a few non-fiction books on my shelf and wanted to get through some of them, and I kind of skim read parts of this because it's not really a novel. It's really just the author telling you about really cool bookstores that exist around the world, and it was interesting, but it was nothing too special. It's a nice coffee table book to have around, and it's maybe even nice to like reference it if you ever want to like go anywhere and think, oh, what cool bookstores are there in Japan, which I think is also what this book was made for. I got this sent by the author a long while ago as a gift, so I am happy to finally have read it, and I think that it's cool, and I'm glad to have it in my possession, but I gave it 3 stars. And then I read When Dimple Met Rishi, which is a kind of rom-com about those 2 Indian American teens. Their parents arranged a marriage for the 2 of them, and Rishi, the guy, knows about it, but Dimple, the girl, does not. And she gets really upset when Rishi comes to her and tells her, hi, we're supposed to get married, because she just wanted to spend the summer at a summer camp where they are developing apps, because she's really interested in that, and she just wants to get a good education and not have like a relationship and marriage as her lifetime goal, and she tries to chase her dreams. So when she gets to that summer camp and finds that Rishi is there trying to like get her to marry him, she is not happy about that. And I thought it was a cute story. It's almost this YA, which is always really good. We need those kind of diverse stories, but the story fell a little bit flat to me. We are at this camp where they're trying to program an app, and they're all like really into computers and IT, but we don't really see any of the programming happening, which was sad because it was a bit of a missed opportunity in my opinion. And then the other thing I didn't really like was that we had this whole soulmate trope, like Dimple and Rishi. They are soulmates, they are made for each other, even after knowing each other only for a very short time, and to me it just didn't feel as realistic for some reason. I thought it was okay, but I didn't love it as much as some others do. The next book is one that I gave 3.5 stars to, and that is Keine Ahnung, ob das Liebe ist by Julia Engelmann. The book title translates to I don't know if this is love, and it is a new installment in a series of slam poetry published by Julia Engelmann, who does spoken word poetry, slam poetry, and she always publishes her cute little stories with really adorable illustrations, and she also always narrates an audiobook of them, which I love listening to. I love that even more than reading the poems. And she also has an album where she has turned her poems into songs, which I really enjoy. But Keine Ahnung, ob das Liebe ist has a new collection full of poetry all about love and not knowing what your feelings really are, and there's always a mix of different themes in this kind of collections. We have completely fantasy poems about a little wizard, for example. We have poems that deal with family, growing up, feelings, all these things that I can relate to a lot of the time. It wasn't my favorite poetry collection by her. I've given past ones 4 or 5 stars, I think. There were just some that I didn't like as much, so I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. But in general, I really love Julia Engelmann, and if you're German, I would always recommend checking out her poems. And then the other 3.5 star book I read was a little bit of a disappointment, because I tend to rate books by this author higher, and that is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. Victoria Schwab is one of my favorite authors, and I gave most of her books that I've read from her 4 or 5 stars, but City of Ghosts is her first middle grade, and I didn't love it. I don't know, I thought it was a little bit boring and not as good as her usual works. It's about this American girl who goes to Scotland with her family, and they are kind of ghost hunting because they are doing like shows about paranormal activity and paranormal like ghost towns and stuff like that. They're doing a TV show about it, and in order to film for that show they are going to Scotland to visit haunted houses, and she isn't really thrilled about it. She is, however, able to see ghosts, and she actually has a best friend called Jacob who is a ghost. And in Scotland she goes around and kind of gets wrapped up into this ghost story of this one really evil ghost, and it's a cute middle grade story, but for V. Schwab I just expected more. For some reason the writing wasn't as excellent as her other books. In my opinion, the story wasn't as great, the characters were kind of forgettable to me, so I only gave it 3.5 stars, and yeah, kind of just expected a little bit more. Now we are moving into 4-star books, and those are all books that I would recommend because I really enjoyed them, so I'm excited to talk about them. The first one is This Song Will Save Your Life. And it's been a while since I've read this, but this is really cool. It's about this girl who's dealing with mental illness and depression, and she has had suicidal thoughts in the past, and she's being bullied at school. People are being absolutely awful to her. But one day she gets introduced to this secret underground club where she meets a DJ, and things start to develop between them, but the one thing that really starts to develop is her love for music and her love for DJing. And she starts DJing as a hobby, and it just gets her out of her rut, out of her comfort zone, out of her bad feelings that she's been having. It really helps her. It kind of really saves her life in a way. And what I loved about this book was that, as I said, we have a bit of a romance in this book, but it's not your typical YA romance. It's not she met this guy and he was perfect and they were perfect for each other and stayed together forever. No, it like really was a lot more realistic and honest than that. It was a really complicated and hard story about love, about rejection, about being treated shittily and standing up for yourself, and it was really good in that aspect. And in general, I just loved the story. I loved the whole DJing aspect of it. It was such an amazing, empowering YA book that I really just loved and would definitely recommend to everyone to read. Next up is A Boy Called Christmas by Matt Haig, and I read this recently around Christmas time, and it's about this guy who in the beginning is called Nicholas, but his nickname from his parents is Christmas, and he lives in Finland with his dad. His mother has died, and his father starts going on a quest to find the elves that are supposed to live in the north of Finland. And he tries to find the elves because the king has promised to give a lot of money to whoever proves that the elves are real. Nicholas and his father are very poor, so he tries to take that opportunity and lets Nicholas stay with his aunt, who however is a really awful person, and Nicholas eventually runs away from her and tries to find his dad and the elves himself. And this is such a cute story. Matt Haig is a really great writer, and this just was absolutely adorable. And for a children's book, it had a lot of hard-hitting topics such as grief and loss and growing up and being disappointed by the people that you love. And it also had some really fun characters. A lot of things were really funny. Some things were really like politically and timely. Like we have a certain elf leader who really, yeah, you really like think of current politicians when you think of him, because he's trying to like use the media to manipulate the people into voting for him and being against outsiders and stuff like that. It's really timely, really well done. Yeah, and it was just a very cute read that I would definitely recommend for around Christmas time. There's more books in this series that he's written, and I definitely want to read them during next Christmas. The next book I read was also a Christmas book, and it was a reread. It was What Light by J. Asher. I read this for the first time I think 2 years ago, and it's about this girl Sierra whose family owns a Christmas tree farm, and for 1 month between Thanksgiving and Christmas, she and her parents always go to that farm at the other half of the country, where they sell Christmas trees. So she has to leave behind her 2 best friends and stay at another place where she has one really great friend, but this time she falls in love with a guy while being away from home, and it's about the whole like drama that comes with falling in love with someone who doesn't live near you, which is something that a lot of my friends have experienced. So I know their struggle, I know how hard that is. It also just is a book that really gets me into the Christmas spirit, because everything in this book is Christmassy. Sierra's whole life in the Christmas farm is just everything Christmas, and it just made me really happy. It's a bit of a sappy love story at times, but I just love it, and it's definitely what I need around Christmas, so I gave it 4 stars and just enjoyed myself a lot. The next 4-star book I read was another German one, and that is Wildfrei und Wunderbar, and it's kind of like Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, but with stories exclusively about women from Germany, Austria and Switzerland, which is really cool. I'm glad that we have this collection to kind of shine light on our local ladies that have made a huge impact and are really powerful women. And I love Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. It was one of my favorite books from last year, and I love this one as well. It also has beautiful illustrations and just lets you learn a lot about women who have done great things in history. And then before getting into my 4.5-star reads, my last book that I rated 4 stars was You by Caroline Kepnes, and I like this a lot. It has recently been adapted into a Netflix miniseries, so maybe you've seen it. It's a book written about a stalker, and it's written in second person, so the stalker kind of talks to you. You are the woman in this book, and it's like you walk into a bookstore and I see you there, and it's about how he stalks this woman basically, and how he appears to be a really charming, nice guy, makes her fall in love with him, but is just the most fucked up, weirdest dude, creepiest guy you've ever seen. He's a stalker, he's absolutely mental, and he would do absolutely everything to get into the woman's head. And it was so good. It was so well done. I absolutely loved it. I had so much fun reading it. I think I must have had some problem because I didn't give it 5 stars, but now looking back on it, I just really loved it, and I thought it was so creepy and so well done. I know that there's a sequel, but most people said that the sequel, I think it's called Hidden Bodies, really isn't good, so I don't think I'm gonna read it. But I definitely liked You a lot and would recommend that you all go and check it out. Okay, next we have the 4.5-star books that I've read, and there are a lot. And I didn't rate those books 5 stars because I feel like 5 stars is something that should be reserved for like my all-time favorite books. But I think from like my enjoyment level, a lot of people would have given them 5 stars, and I think I could give them all 5 stars because I just thought that they were all so good, but I must have had some little issues with them for them not to really be full 5 out of 5 stars. So just a quick disclaimer, they are all really amazing and you should probably read them all. The first book is Not Your Sidekick by C.V. Lee. It's basically about queer superheroes, There's this girl who is bisexual and biracial, and her parents are both superheroes. So they have special abilities and they are trying to use them for good. There is also one person who is kind of the supervillain, and he is their nemesis. And then, without really knowing, our main character gets an internship at that supervillain, and it's just really, really fun. It's about her falling in love with another girl, which was really cute, and I enjoyed it a lot. And the whole superhero aspect was just really adorable in my opinion. It wasn't like the most well-written book ever, but I just thought it was really cute, and I just loved all of the queer rep. We have bisexual girls, we have trans characters, we have just everything that I could ask for, and it was so adorable. And I need to continue reading the next book in the series, where I think a trans character will actually be the star of the whole novel. And yeah, I'm just really, really happy that I read this. I rated it 4 out of 5, and if you like queer superheroes, you should definitely check that book out. The next 4.5 star book was Autobiography by Christina Lauren, and this is about a bisexual guy who falls in love with a gay Mormon. And he is a really practicing Mormon. He's like really like looked well upon in his community. He has recently published a book and it has become a bestseller, and he's really like a faithful member of the community. So for him it's really, really a big deal that he's gay, and it's not accepted at all by the rest of his family. And oh my god, it was really, really good. The whole discussion of Mormonism or Christianity, religion, and being gay or being in the LGBT plus community, I thought it was so well done, and the whole book was so heartbreaking. It wasn't a full 5 star because there were some issues that I had with it, but I definitely recommend this. It was so good. Next up, I have White Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore. And this is a magical realism book where there are those gardens of this Latinx family, and the women of this family have been living in those gardens for generations, and it's about this huge family of queer Latinx women who are basically all bisexual, and I just really, really liked it. And they have a curse that whenever they love someone too much, that person vanishes. And I had this in my most anticipated books of 2018 video as well. I thought that I would give it 5 stars, and I basically did, because 4.5 stars is like a really, really, really great book. What I loved about this was the writing style, and I loved the whole premise. I loved the diversity, and it was just a really magical story. It just really pulled me in. The writing style was beautiful. I definitely want to read more by this author, and yeah, I can recommend this a lot. It was a really, really well done story. Next we have Kids of Appetite by David Arnold, and this one was also so good because we follow this group of misfits who all don't really fit in anywhere. They all don't really have family, so they kind of build their own family, and they all have like the most different issues. But the main character that we follow, he has a condition where he, for example, can't blink and can't smile and can't like show any facial expression, and his father died, and his mother is in a new relationship, but he hates the guy she's dating. And one day he just runs away from home, and he finds the Kids of Appetite, who are those kind of gang of kids who also don't fit in anywhere. And it's just this whole like misfit chosen family trope that I love so much. The characters were just absolutely amazing, and I love that they were all really different and really diverse, and we had a bit of a cute little love story going on. Yeah, it was just really, really adorable, and yeah, a 4.5 star book for me. Then I read The Wicker King which is a really weird book, and for a long time I didn't really know how to rate it. It's about this guy who kind of starts having hallucinations and think that he is the Wicker King, and he thinks that he alone can like save the world of the Wicker King. And it's a very strange book. We know that in the beginning those two guys have burned down a building, and that the police is thinking about like putting them to prison or maybe putting them into a mental hospital. And it's a really strange book. I absolutely love the format of this, because kind of like with books like Illuminae and such, it's not the typical novel format, but it has a lot of like notes and chat logs and pictures. And the really cool thing is that it starts out with completely white pages, and as you go on throughout the book, the story and the whole like visuals of the book just get darker and darker and darker. And that was just so well done. The whole book is so atmospheric, and I cannot describe it at all because it's just an experience. I would definitely recommend that you give it a go, because it's a very strange book, but a very good one. My next 4.5 star book is Sadie. I almost gave this 5 stars. It might even be a 5-star book. I'm still like a little bit indecisive about it. It's about this girl called Sadie who goes missing, and this guy who does a true crime podcast about what happened to her. What happened to her sister, who was who went missing before her, and what happened to Sadie. He is trying to investigate, and he talks to people who have met her ever since she went missing. She tries to like reconnect the way that she went, and we also see her perspective, and it was so good. It was really hard to read, because this has to do with kidnapping and pedophilia and child abuse and horrible things, but it's also so well done. And especially the audiobook was one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to, because of the whole true crime podcast element, because they actually make the podcast in the audiobook, and it's just so cool. I absolutely loved it. Next we have 2 more children's Christmas books that were 4.5 stars, and the first one is How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. This is just so cute. I loved it. It's about how the Grinch stole Christmas. It's a picture book. I think you all know the story of the Grinch, and I don't really have a lot to say other than that it was absolutely adorable, and I liked it a lot. And I have watched the like live action film from years ago, and I didn't like it. I think that it's really weird and creepy. And I still want to see the new animated version, because my sister says that it's a lot better. But yeah, the whole story of the Grinch is just such a cute one, and I never really knew, like I knew that there's the Grinch, but I didn't really know his story, so reading his story was just very cute, and I liked it a lot. I also read Die Schneeschwester, which translates to The Snow Sister, and I think it's originally been published in Norwegian, but it's about this boy Julian who has lost his older sister recently, and it's gonna be the first Christmas without his sister, and his parents are not the same anymore. They are really like sad versions of themselves. They don't have any Christmas joy in them, and he is really scared of his first Christmas, and it's also his birthday on Christmas, so it's an extra hard time for him, and he tries to somehow work through his grief, and he meets this girl called Hedwig who suddenly befriends him, and they have adventures together. Something, however, isn't really right, because he visits her at her house, and it turns out that Hedwig is not who you think she is, and it's such a cute story. It made me cry. It's adorable. It is perfect for Christmas. It's really sad, really cute, really shows you what Christmas is about, and the illustrations in it are absolutely stunning and beautiful, and I just loved it a lot. And now finally we come to my 5-star reads. And the first one I want to talk about is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I love this so much. It's by far my favorite Adam Silvera that I have read, and it's so good. The premise of the book is that it's set in a world very similar to our own. The only thing that's different is that they have a thing called Deathcast, where you know at the day of your death you're gonna get a call saying you're gonna die today. Live your last day to the fullest. And this book is so beautiful. It's about those two guys called Matteo and Rufus, who meet on the Last Friend app, which is supposed to find you a companion for your last day when you're gonna die. And they meet, they fall in love. It's all set over the span of 24 hours, and it was so beautiful. The characters of Rufus and Matteo are two of my absolutely favorite characters I've ever read about. It was so good, and it just made me cry so much. Like, you know that this book's gonna fuck you up and this book's gonna make you sad, but it made me so sad. I just love the characters so much. They are some of my favorites in literature I've ever read about, and the whole story is so beautiful. It's so well written, it's so well paced, even though it's done in 24 hours and it kind of has the whole insta-love thing. It was so well done, in my opinion. It was so tragic. It really kept me wanting to read the entire time. It's one of those books that you can read in one sitting. I loved it so much, and what's also really cool in this book is that you kind of get glimpses of the lives of different other characters that kind of impact Rufus and Matteo's stories throughout the 24 hours. And oh my god, it's so good. It was so beautiful. And yeah, I definitely want to reread it at some point, and I'm definitely so excited to read more books by Adam Silvera now, because this was such a masterpiece. And now the final thing that I rated 5 stars, and I say thing because it's not just one book, but it's a whole entire series, and that is The Raven Cycle by Maddie Stiefvater. I think when I read them, I rated The Raven Boys, The Dream Feast, and The Raven King all 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I gave Blue Lily Blue 4 stars, but right now I don't really know why. All I know is that I have fallen in love with this series so much. It's very hard to describe, but it's basically a urban fantasy, magical realism, I don't really know. It's set in a world very similar to ours, but magic is very much a thing that exists. We follow Blue, who is the only one in a family of psychics who doesn't have any psychic ability herself. And then we follow those 4 boys, the Raven Boys, who go to this prestigious school, and they all have very different stories. It's such a beautiful story. I love those characters with all of my heart, and I have had the absolute best time reading these books over the last couple of months. It's been so much fun. I enjoyed it so much, and it was definitely one of my favorite things I've read this whole entire year. Yeah, I just love these books with all of my heart. That's it for this wrap up. I don't know how long it is. I hope it's not like an hour long or something, but if it is, I'm very sorry. I finally wrapped up all of the books I read in 2018. Yay me! I hopefully will have a favorite books video up very soon, and I'm excited to start into the new year with all of you. I hope you will all have an absolutely amazing reading year, and if you watch this all the way, thanks so much. Please leave a little dog emoji in honor of this little pug, so that I know that you have watched until the end. I will hopefully see you again in another video very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and